A bit of a rare one today because I will be expressing some personal opinions and I'll also be doing a call to action. So what's this about? It's about a series of cases that are about to start this month, all to do with the rescue of puppies from a place called MBR Acres. What's MBR Acres? Well, that's a facility belonging to somebody called Marshall Bioresources. And what they do is they breed beagle puppies for use in animal experimentation. And there's a dog just coming. Come here, I need you to be in the video to look cute. Come here. Ow! Ah. You see, here you go. Right, this is my co-presenter. Yes, and I will throw the ball for you shortly and stuff. I feel guilty about my lack of ball throwing. But yeah, so they produce puppies which they sell at 16 weeks on. From 16 weeks old, they sell them for animal research. They've also got something called a bleeding license, so they can actually drain them of their blood for experiments. Now, I won't get into the rights or wrongs of animal experimentation. I mean, you know, my thoughts are probably quite clear on this because, I mean, my main argument is it's unnecessary and it's actually counterproductive. I mean, I'll just say thalidomide. And there are so many different ways of doing that now with computer modelling or tissue cultures. So you know, actually get much better results. But I'll let you argue about that in the comments. But what actually happened? Well, there were two operations. So in June of 2022, they managed to rescue 5 puppies initially. And then in December, they went back in and they got another 18. Now, as it happens, 2 of the puppies were actually managed to be seized by the police, and they went back to MBR Acres. Now, we don't know what happened to them, because what they actually had said is, they said, well, now you've taken these off the site, they are worthless to us because we need to raise them in a sterile environment because they're going to be experimented on. So you taking them away, now they're useless to us. So I'm slightly concerned that they were just, you know, destroyed, those poor dogs. But however, there are 23 dogs that do have a happy ending and have now been relocated with other people. But what about the people who went in there? Well, they've all been charged with burglary. And I'm going to be careful about how much I say about the trials because proceedings are by definition afoot. And so I have to be very careful of the contempt side of things. I mean, there will be lots of PR about this, and I probably will refer to it and link to it, so you can follow this yourself. But this is just a general background. So they've been charged with burglary. What's the definition of burglary? Well, it's entering premises as a trespasser with the intention, once you're in there, to steal, commit criminal damage, commit assault, or commit an SUL offence. But in this particular case, they say, well, the intention is you were stealing. And what's stealing? Well, it's the dishonest appropriation of property belonging to another with an intention of permanently depriving. But what are the potential defences? Well, there are 2. Well, there's dishonesty. You know, are these people acting dishonesty? Because yes, people have property rights, but there's also something called necessity. Now, the classic sort of example to give of necessity is you come across a car with a dog trapped in it, you know, like it's a hot day and there's a dog suffering in there, you break the car window. You know, normally that's criminal damage because that's somebody else's property, but you have a defence. And the test for necessity is, are you trying to prevent a greater harm? So it's, yes, I accept I committed an offence, but I'm trying to prevent a greater harm. It doesn't actually have to be prevent something that's illegal. It can just be prevent a great harm. You don't actually have to be successful. I mean, the classic example there again is they often say, like, you drink drive to take somebody to the hospital who's having a heart attack. Well, if it was dependent on whether you succeeded, that's all down to how good the doctors are. You know, if you get there and it's fantastic and they resuscitate somebody, well, great, you saved somebody's life. So, of course, necessity applies. So what if you get there and they shuffle off this small coil anyway? Doesn't matter. The attempt was enough. So these are the sorts of factors that people will consider. And it's going to be, was it justified to rescue these dogs from suffering? There's all sorts of interesting laws, because under both the Dogs Act 1906 and the Environmental Protection Act 1990, they both have provisions that say if the police have a stray dog, they find a stray dog, it explains what the rules are about giving it back to the owners, like you have to pay for their board and lodgings while they're looking after it, but they have to give you the dog back. However, unless it is for the purposes of vivisection. So the law does recognise that, yes, you might have ownership of an animal, but that doesn't mean you can do anything with it. So I think that's an interesting argument. But yeah, fundamentally, they'll be running the defences of necessity. And also, was this dishonest? Because you're going in there to actually rescue people. But there's a series of trials. And they face up to 10 years in prison each. Now, I think it's fair to say, I don't think these people are willing to go to prison for this, but obviously, well, I'd certainly prefer it if they didn't. So what can you do to help? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, there's a petition about MBR Acres itself, just to try and get it closed down. Now, interestingly, they have another operation in the US, and that has been closed down. That was part of a deal because they did all the undercover investigations. And there's a video, if you Google or just type in Art of Law channel, undercover investigations, I've actually done a video all about advice for people who do undercover investigations. But they were able to show what was going on there, lots of breaches of criminal law. And a deal was done. The prosecutor said, we won't prosecute you if you close the facility down. So although they escaped justice, at least fundamentally, the end result was that facility no longer exists. So it'll be very interesting to see here. Also, I mean, a lot of these people, they're just representing themselves. These are people who just care about animals. You know, they're doing it purely on a personal thing. And I mean, the organisation is called Animal Rising, which I am a member of. Although I get confused because I'm sure it was called Surge when I started. It just keeps changing. I keep getting the emails and going, oh, you know, stop changing the name. I just get confused. I think it might have even been Animal Rebellion for a while. I can't remember. But these are all good people. It's not like they're particularly wealthy or anything. You know, they're basically the sort of people who just spend all their wages on, like, you know, housing dogs and things like that. So they've got no money for legal expenses. So there is a bit of a crowdfunder just to try and do that. I mean, they're happy just to stand in court and explain everything. But if you do fancy chipping in, and what I'll do is in the description, I'll post a link both to some more background on this, and that also has a link to the petition, and also you can read up about the potential crowdfunding. So that's my call to action. And like I said, I'll be very interested in your comments all about this. You know, we can chat about necessity. But fundamentally, you know, the law recognises that there needs to be discretion in the law. If you have absolutist law where the law is enforced rigorously into the letter, yes, you get certainty, but also you can get injustice. I mean, this is the whole argument, you know, between the common law and equity. You know, the common law is very, very strict and formal and doesn't look at the sort of background and the morality of everything, you know, who's morally right or who deserves to be punished or anything like that, who deserves to win. It just looks at, well, who as a matter of law wins. So the whole point of the equity jurisdiction was sometimes that produces an unfair result. So you need a little bit of discretion in there so people can be human. Of course, this will all be tried in front of a jury of 12 good men and women and true. I'm not going to say anything to influence the jury, obviously. But fundamentally, it's going to be a matter of, will these, you know, what will the jury think? But there's also legal issues, because to run a defence of necessity, it gets a bit complicated. Whether something can amount to necessity is a matter of law. Whether something actually does amount to necessity is a matter of fact for the jury. But you have to get over that first hurdle, which is we want to run the necessity defence. And that's a legal argument. So that'll be very interesting to see if the judge actually allows them to run that. But I'll keep you informed. But yeah, this is a bit of a break from our normal planning, because although, you know, I've slipped a little bit of law in there to be vaguely informative, vaguely entertaining, and hopefully vaguely accurate, this is actually a little personal thing of mine. Like I say, I'm not going to say too much other than, oh, puppies and stuff. And if I've got my editing skills, I've actually got all the footage from, you know, what happened, you know, from the actual raids, the operations, whatever you want to call them, including, you know, when they just, you know, they handed themselves over to the police. It was all very cooperative. It's like, yeah, we've done our thing, we've got the dogs away, slap the cuffs on, you know, we're ready to face the consequences. So I personally, my personal opinion is these are very brave as well as compassionate people. But feel free to have a go in the comments about this, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. And now, if you'll forgive me, I need to go, because I promised a dog I would throw a tennis ball for him. Notwithstanding, and thank you for all your sympathy about my poorly paw. It looks like it's just a sprain. Thank goodness it's not carpal tunnel syndrome or whatever it's called. So normal service of throwing balls for dogs will be resumed shortly.